excited to be with folks again. Yeah, excited generally. Also waking up from a nap, because naps are great. Take a nap if you are able to do so. Naps are lovely. Yeah, welcome to Terra for a World on Fire. My name is Blair, and if you're new to the space, Terra for a World on Fire are tarot readings that are aligned with the seasons to explore collective and personal healing as a strategy to let the world we want to new decompose and cultivate a new world that deserves us. I'm a member of the Rooted Collective, and the Rooted Collective is a liberatory gathering of Black LGBTQ people to define, dream, and expand on the ways in which we heal from oppression and practice joy and pleasure. We root our work in the knowledge that healing for all Black people is political resistance. And this is an offering that I provide seasonally to the Rooted Collective through my own practice and through my work with Alight Baltimore or Alight Alchemy, which is a website folks can go to, alightbaltimore.com or alightalchemy.com. And it's a place where you can sit for a spell, breathe through transition, and ignite your power and purpose through the art of tarot, coaching, consulting, and other supports and services. Yeah, so deeply excited to be with folks today. Yeah, it's springtime. It's like, oh my gosh, we are finally here. And it's just, this winter was so much. It was so much, y'all. And I feel like that is a refrain that I keep coming back to, is just how much this time is, how much the seasons hold and carry, but particularly the energy of this winter. It just was so weighted. It was so, yeah. I think we just we struggled a bit. I just felt myself saw, yeah, just so much change, shift, loss, grief, so many things we talked about in the reading beforehand in winter. And actually a note to, as you engage with this reading, make sure to go back and listen to other sessions. Go back and listen to other recordings over the past seasons, do some reflection a little bit on your season, see if the reading was in alignment with you in any way, shape, or form before moving into this one. It's just like a good reflection moment for some journaling, some voice notes, some meditation, just some stillness, whatever resonates. But yes, the heaviness of winter, it was heavy. And we're still in the heaviness, right? I think it's just important to acknowledge that seasonal shifts are a really beautiful flashpoint for us to pause. It doesn't end what we previously experienced. It allows us all to be like, whew, change is possible, change is coming. Change happens every single day, right? And the seasonal shifts just remind us that no matter what is happening, change is the thing that we will always come back to, that will always be present. So know that some of that grief that we were experiencing in winter, some of that heaviness might still be with us. It might still be in our bones, in our bodies, in our spirits. We might still be learning how to move through it, still connected with our communities to figure out how to process it, still looking for healing practitioners to help us hold it, to get to know it really well. Because I think this year, the season, and now not season as in 3-month span, right? A seasonal change, but season as in this journey that we're on collectively in the world, is a season of massive grief and of massive change. And so we're in practice mode a little bit. We continue to be in practice mode around how we acknowledge, honor, move through, still ourselves, connect with others to ultimately sustain, right? So yeah, just acknowledging that all that stuff is still here, right? Is very much still here. Um, and ultimately, we're in this practice of getting in right relationship, not only to those really heavy experiences, right? But just to change as a process, to change as a process. Um, I think it's also really important to note that we are in an anniversary period again, right? So springtime, March, mid-March was the time when things shut down 2 years ago, right? And so this again, we're in the season of an anniversary period of the pandemic that impacted folks globally, of us shifting our relationship to each other, to our environments, to our homes, to our loved ones collectively, right? Just this, whew, it is a lot that we went through. And we're kind of coming back into the world that haven't quite processed, like for real, right? And so one of the things that keeps coming up, I think, as I think about the season that's coming and that we're in, right? Spring equinox being the time that we're in right now, this time of equal light and equal dark, is grace. Just so much grace for yourself, so much grace for your people, so much grace for the folks that you don't know, just because we're all in it so deep. And it's just important to give folks the space and grace because they're also in it so deep, right? And in that, we've also changed so much. We are not the same people we were 2 years ago in any way, shape, or form. Folks have changed careers, family, jobs, home, had loss, had birth, and possibility of new life come into the world. So much has shifted in these past 2 years. Folks coming to deeper self-alignment of like knowing who they are and making choices to be more aligned to that, or feeling like they know who they are, but they can't quite make those choices in this moment because there's blockages and things that they need to do to sustain the people in their lives around them, sustain house, like children, right? I mean, sustain all these things. And so it's just been, there's been so much just collective like vulnerability that's happened in these past 2 years. And we've all changed drastically as a result of that process. And so just know also some of the grief that might be showing up right now is also that it's the 2 year mark. And again, how do you give yourself grace? How do you move through grace? And that knowing as well. So as we talk about springtime, spring being about renewal, spring being about flourishing, possibility, like the budding of flowers, the trees sort of coming back to life, the sun coming out in a particular kind of way that really just brings like heat and just returns us to this like warmth, right? That folks like have been like, whew, like when you get some sunlight on your skin after a series of really great days, it just feels different. It hits entirely different, right? So yeah, the season is very much about that, right? It's about renewal. It's about that rebirth process. And as we are renewing, it is critical for us to not be in a forgetting, right? We can renew and still remember. And that remembering is going to be critical as we just don't repeat the same things that mankind continues to repeat, right? So that remembering is key in the renewal. How do we treat each other differently? How do we hold space for each other differently? How do you still show up in community when folks still might have different ability or different vulnerability when it comes to yeah, disease, right? And so just like, what is that? How do we navigate that and just continue to remember while also feeling renewed and feeling restored? So there's some work there that we have to do collectively as well around that renewal and that remembering at the same time. Lots of at the same times. Um, and one of the things that comes up with spring, another thing that comes up with spring, uh, is our root systems. It is the time, one of the many times, right, when our root systems are really getting thick, they're like really digging into the earth, they're expanding out, we're like kind of building the foundation needed as plants are to be able to shoot up, to flower, to produce fruit, to nourish, right? And as we move into summer and like just things can again become more full and more abundant and more just lush, those root systems have also gotten deeper and they've gotten the fibers have just like multiplied tremendously, not only in the depth, but also in a breadth, right? And so there's just so many lessons in root systems that is a little like, but with the Rooted Collective, we do a lot of work with talking about our roots and our ancestry and our people. But very seriously though, this is the time to really be looking at your roots. Where is your root system currently located, right? Who are you rooting into? Are there particular people that you're rooted into? Is there a place that you're deeply rooted into? How are you rooted into them, right? Are the roots really deep and are they so deep and kind of gnarled in which that they actually can't breathe and not quite getting the nutrients that they need? Do we need to loosen our roots in some people a little bit to give some space? Are there other people that we aren't quite deeply rooted into that we're like, you know what, actually, they're nourishing me in this pretty incredible way and I'm nourishing them, right? There's a reciprocity that exists in that relationship. And so I wonder if it makes sense for us to have a conversation about rooting together more thoughtfully, having time together, right? Carving that space out. We've done such a good job. I think so many folks have done such a good job in reflecting on who their people are. And COVID has taught us really clearly when things go just in a deeply unexpected way, who are the folks who you pod with? Who are the people that you go to for support? Yeah, where's your, yeah, who are you reading into? You know, that has been one of the biggest lessons that we can take with us is who are we reading into? Lessons that we've learned through the pandemic. And this practice, right? The practice that queer community and Black community and Black queer community especially engages in around chosen family is, it is a like practice that is so synonymous with rooting, right? Establishing those deep, tender, cherished connections in people who might not be the same people, right? That you grew up next to, but they are people that are over here and over there and across the country that are really, they are the things that are feeding you and nourishing you and allowing you to be. And again, you feel that reciprocity in that relationship in that really powerful way. And so models, examples, queer community being a model and example, chosen family being a model and example of how you can choose your roots and make sure that, yeah, they're strong, right? Not only in a depth space, but again, a breadth space. So that way, when the tornado comes or the hurricane comes or life happens, right? Your root system is so strong that you're able to withstand better those catastrophic things that happen in our lives, the loss, the grief, and you're able to still have those roots sustain, right? You're able to still be firm in the ground because you've taken so much time and energy caring and tending to those roots. So your practice for this spring is to really assess those root systems and really dig into the ones that, or lean into the ones, I guess, that might need a little bit more love and care and attention. And maybe think about like kind of releasing or loosening some of those roots that might not actually be feeding you in the same way that you once were. And maybe you need to feed something each other in a different sort of way, a little less constriction. So yeah, who are you rooted into? Where are your roots located? How are you rooted in this moment? Those are questions to be thinking about this spring as we move into the abundance, light, and all the things that come with summertime. So that is your little synopsis, pre-tarot reading, and just some spiritual reflections to connect with as we move into it early in spring at the spring equinox. Great. Okay, I think that's it. And maybe the one last little thing I'll name is that if you are struggling with like, that feels really weird to me, who am I rooting into? I don't actually know. Like, what's a way to even like write that down? What is the practice? Some of the lessons that we came to, I think, in our last tarot reading, right? So talking about the presence of chaos, death, grief as these forces that we needed to become acquainted with in some way. But in the tarot reading, acknowledging that stillness and love are the medicine to get us through. I really want to bring us back to that stillness piece. And so if you're having a hard time and thinking about who you read it into, who those people are, what those environmental locations are, always go back to the quiet. It's a moment where you can listen to the birds in the morning, sit on the earth, and just take a breath. Just feel the sunlight hit your skin in a particular way. Really, those markers of springtime, right? Those markers of renewal. Take a walk and look at some flowers. Just those like quick, soft moments of quiet, and asking yourself those questions in those times. See what comes up. See the things that spark in your body, in your heart, in your mind as you ask yourself those questions about who you're rooted into. And then write them down, document them, take a quick voice note, and come back to them later. If you're having struggling with that concept or that question around your root systems, yeah, let nature be your teacher. She is such a powerful teacher. Great. So with that, we are going to shift into the tarot reading. Go ahead and make yourself comfy, make yourself nice and settled wherever you are. Grab yourself some tea, some water, do a little stretch if you're like, doing something like running or something like that. You just take a few deep breaths. And just loving on your body in this moment, loving on the thing that we all share, the inhale and the exhale. Just take some of those breaths. And I'm going to do some shuffling of the cards as you do some just grounding and centering for yourself. And we'll do the pull. And the question that we're asking is, what should we be collectively paying attention to as we move into the spring? What should we be collectively paying attention to as we move into the spring? What should we collectively be paying attention to as we move into the spring? Great. All right, so I'm gonna pull 3 cards, finish them for the camera, and we will interpret themes and stuff as we pull. So just like organizing my life a little bit, and perfect. All right, so first card is the Knight of Cups. Knight of Cups. Second card is Revolution. Revolution. Third card is the Fool. Okay, loves. So before we jump in, just a reminder of the cards that I'm using when I like make sure to plug the deck. I have lots of decks that I use. Some decks are for in-person tarot readings only. They're very clear. That's the only way they want to be worked with. Other decks are just for my altar or particular beloveds in my life. And so they're the ones that want to be used with the folks I'm most deeply rooted in. And then this deck really responds and like loves when we have to build connections virtually. And so the cards themselves are really beautiful. It's the Next World Tarot. The deck is just so like vibrant, lots of queer and trans folks, people of color, differently able folks, women and femmes. Really beautiful imagery. And the cards are also really nicely sized and big, so you can see them better on the Zoom. So that is the deck that I use. If you're ever looking for other tarot decks, or like are looking for like you're interested in starting your practice or starting to practice and learn and want to know kind of like where to go or what decks to take a look at, there's a lot of recommended decks and sites and stuff out there. I'm happy to also send some recommendations to folks too. But this is the Next World Tarot. Okay, cool. So these cards. So again, the Major Arcana, Minor Arcana. When we're talking about tarot cards, they're kind of differentiated into 2 themes more largely. One of the themes, Major Arcana, is really, right, we talked about this, the journey that a person a being goes through from beginning to fulfillment of a cycle, to completion, to lesson learned, to integration, before kind of starting that journey all over again. The Fool is where that journey starts. And so we'll talk about that as it shows up in this reading in a moment. And there's 2 Major Arcana cards that show up in this reading, both the Fool and Revolution. So both of those are cards that they're just big cards. They're just, they point to these kind of major life archetypes that are present in many of our lives, and then call us to pay attention to those themes, those major themes that show up in our collective, in the collective. And then there's one card that is in the Minor Arcana. A Minor Arcana, there's 4 suits, different cards interpret them differently. All the suits mean different things. This suit is the card that shows up in this reading is the Cups. Cups are cards of our heart, our emotions, love, family, friends, community, connections, the things that just just activate our heart center, our heart space. Also, if you want to think about the elements as it relates to those 4 suits, the Cups is synonymous with water. And so your water signs are the ones that come through strongest when we talk about cups. And it's that emotional flow, right? That is what that cups give us, that emotional flow. And so as we dig into this reading today, so cups have come up for us before. Cups have come up actually a good bit in the course of our readings. We've started doing readings together as a collective. In the beginning of the pandemic, my first reading was very like not great on my phone, like feeling feelings as the world shut down and wanting to process in community. And through that journey over these past 2 years to this point, cups have always shown up. They've shown up in various ways, all the way from the Ace of Cups, which is like new love, profound love, to eights and nines, close to the end of our journey. It just always really kind of bringing us back to this recognition that like love is going to be the thing that will help to get us through. And that just being just a constant that shows up not only in this reading that we do as Tarot for a World on Fire every solstice and equinox, but also in private tarot readings and other spaces, just like that sense of like, yeah, that love roots us, being the thing that continues to come up. And so how that energy of love and community and connection is showing up in this reading is the Knight of Cups. So Knights are cards that can be reinterpreted in various decks. Most decks consider pages, knights, queens, and kings as the primary archetypes yeah, not the archetypes, but the names of like these particular court cards, right? And most of the in most playing card decks you'd see as like queen, king, and jack. A deck that I use that I really love a lot degenders those roles and moves them into student traveler, visionary architect, and different, and kind of tying those back to those four core cards. So when the Knight card comes up, the Knight is actually synonymous to student. And so there is a particular need for us to be in learning right now, in study, in process, and in practice, but really doing a deeper understanding of when we talk about, when we name matters of our hearts, when we talk about community, when we talk about collective, when we talk about, when we say the word family, when we say the word beloved, when we say the word partner, when we say these words, when we say the word friends, like, what do we mean? What is that? Can we contextualize it? Can we get really clear about the love that is deeply restorative and deeply nourishing? Can we get clear about that? Because a lot of us experience love that we might have named love at one point in our lives, and actually that wasn't love. And we realize that well after that experience, right? Or sometimes well in the experience, and that helped us get out of that experience. And so just getting crystal clear, clarity is key. Clarity is like, yeah, we all want clarity. We all want to just like be able to speak clearly, to like understand. Just clarity is like where it's at. How do we get really clear about love? About what it means, about how it feels. And with the recognition that our language does not exactly have the expansiveness to be able to communicate that. It just doesn't. There are words I wish I knew from my ancestry, right, that I no longer have access to, based on the trade of people, right, who were brought over to, and Black people, right, Black people in particular, who were brought over to the US, which is where I currently am living. And there is language that I just don't have access to anymore. Many of us do not have access to language in our bodies, in our spirits, in our native tongues, that we just aren't able to use to best describe relationship and community and all the nuances that exist in that. And we'll do our best. And we'll use art, and we'll use movement, um, and we'll use other tools to be able to really do that work. And so the Knight of Cups is that work. It is the work of learning love. Um, it is, and when the Knight of Cups comes, it is usually, there's an urgency in the love, right? There is there's like a quickness to the love. There's like, I need it like right now. Like there's like yeah, it tends to, the Knight of Cups is the card that will, yeah, just profess their love to you and mean every word of it because they had one experience that really blew their mind, right? So it's not a logical love. It is really just completely guided by the flow of emotion, raw, unfiltered emotion. So that's the energy of Knight of Cups, right? So it's like when you're feeling that, that overwhelming experience of love shoot through your body, it is, the Knight of Cups is that experience of, oh my God, I have this emotion and I'm going to do something with it right in this moment. It is that urgency, that act of quickness that we approach in love. And actually, quick correction, I'm going to correction from something I previously said. I said that the student and the knight were equal to each other in a previous deck. That is not true. It's the traveler and the knight are connected to each other in a previous deck. So the traveler is movement. The traveler is that energy of action, of urgency, of chivalry, of pomp and circumstance, of like just all the things to like make us feel good, like make us feel love like right now. So that is Knight of Cups energy. It is like being in the flow and the full bodied watery depths of what love can be and feeling that really deeply and wanting to act on that. And of course, spread all the love, spread all the joy. We all need it. And also interrogate. Like it is a lesson that is asking us to also interrogate. Yeah, interrogate, make sure we know what we mean. Make sure we know how we're loving ourselves. Make sure we know how we're showing up. Because the rapids can be really intense. Yeah, flow with them, but also assess and interrogate and gain clarity in the act of love. And that's really deeply important because when we learn how we need to be loved, when we learn how our community needs to be loved, when we learn what love doesn't feel like, what love shouldn't be and what love isn't, that means when we move into justice, we move into liberating each other, when we move into revolution, revolution being that next card, we're able to really clearly like know with every fiber in our being that the act that we're in is a loving act, right? Because we've defined love for ourselves and we know that this act that I am in is love, this fighting for my people, this showing up and providing care in this particular way, this deep, deep listening I'm doing, this protesting and just like shouting and screaming and raging I'm doing at the system. We know, and because we've done the work about defining what love is for ourselves, even when we're feeling the big of it, we've done the work of defining it, that we are crystal clear that when we're in it and we're asked to love, we can say, oh no, it's not that love that like y'all were taught when you were like little. This is like the revolutionary kind of love that I need us to be in and that I'm in practice in. and this is how it's going to show up, you know? Um, and so it's just a really important part, that definition, as we move into this next card, Revolution. Revolution is a card of exactly that, of change, 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 big, big, big change, change, change. And I know that it feels like we can't handle anymore, like change. Sometimes I'm like, everything is changing so quickly. Things are becoming very unfamiliar very quickly. I'm experiencing emotions that I have not experienced in flow with each other so much more quickly than I once did. I'm looking at the world and both laughing and crying and like full of joy at the same time, often over and over and over and over again. It's a lot. We're just in a lot. And revolution is what is just change. It is the change. It is the ways that we say this thing no longer is working for us collectively, and we are going to change it. And we've always been in a cycle of revolution, right? Black folks, Black, queer, and trans people, our bodies are revolution, our existence is revolution. It is pushing against everything that we're told should not exist, and yet still we are. And our existence is revolution. And so, and revolution is change. And revolution is change. Change can be really hard. Change can, again, feel really destabilizing, feel really scary. It can make us question everything we once knew. It can make us maybe say, oh wait, maybe I shouldn't say that thing, or maybe I shouldn't demand that thing, or maybe I shouldn't listen or care in that way, because I am scared that if I do, it is going to reveal some deeper truth to me that I'm scared of knowing. And knowing that everything is fucked and we're just like trying to figure out how to build the next thing, right? Something that's more powerful and better. It's a scary thing to be like, to be fully in agreement with, and in yeah, in alignment with, because it means that yeah, it means things must start anew. And while it's hard to vision that on a hyper global level, it is so much easier to do that work on a local level and really lean into those revolutions in your body, those revolutions in your home, those revolutions in your community, in your neighborhood, where folks have collectively determined, yourselves have collectively determined that the way that this is going on right now is not working for us. We need something to shift. And revolution is that shift. It is things feeling like they're falling apart. It is things feeling like they're crumbling. It brings us back again to the grief and the death and all that stuff. And what comes after is rebirth, is new life, is new possibility. And this is a message that we've gotten over and over again, to like kind of brace ourselves for what is to come and what happens when you're really in alignment with who you are and you want to manifest something new in the world, and you are seeing everything around you not working, and you being impacted by that and your people being impacted by that. And still you decide to lean into it and let go and fight and change, right? Revolution is the energy of change. And so that's a lot. And as I named before, we're not done grieving, right? That's still something that's really present with us. And we've learned lessons. What have we learned about that process as we move into continued change on a cellular level in our bodies, on a communal level, as we start to see things differently and we start really just fighting for the shit, changing the shit actively, even more actively than we already are. Even more active than we already are. There's a lot more to come. There's a lot more change to come. Breathe into that. Root into your people. Know that there are folks, myself included, who love you so fucking deeply and are with you as we go through. So that is revolution. And then we move to the Fool card. The Fool is exactly that new start. The Fool is the beginning of a new journey. The Fool is taking a step out, sitting on a branch, being a little chick, taking a step off the branch, flapping your wings, and trusting that you're going to fly. It is the exhilarating possibility, bravery, excitement, fear that comes with a new journey. And so we're on the precipice of both massive change in minuscule and major ways. And right after that change, being in this really exciting, new, scary, wonderful, like naive, trusting, hands open, let's dream together space. Very exciting. The Fool energy it's one of my favorites. I love it. It is like, you are just, there's so much in store, right? Like you're like just getting started. It is just really just, there's like a saccharine energy to it, just a very just sweet and loving energy that I experience when it comes to the Fool. It's really great. And so as this whole thing is just a journey, right? So critical for us to be in the flow of emotion and love and really interrogate what that means and how that shows up in practice and how we provide it and what we need to feel all that love, because it's going to be necessary to both name what needs to be named and revelatory acts of love through change happening internally in our bodies, with our communities, with our systems and societies. And then after that, just the new, bright, exciting energy of a fresh start. And in that fresh start, we will then have clear definition on what love means, what love is, how to actualize love, how to define and clarify it in a way that is just, you can like taste it. It's just like more resonant, it's more real. It's just a really important part of studying something new. And we'll be in that renewal while also remembering what came before, so we don't do the same things again. And so what changes are we making in our lives in this renewal space for us not to do the same things over and over again that do not serve us? If they serve you and they're aligned, go forth and prosper. But if they do not serve you, then what are we doing to change? And ignite those revolutions inside of ourselves in the places that we love. So this was a big one. I'm like having some like body stuff, like my back is like, oh, okay. I'm like doing some like I don't know, was just doing some like, oh, like, okay, just kind of feeling it a little bit. It's a big one. And yeah. And as always, you've got this because we've got this. And yeah, you're just deeply and profoundly loved. So thank you so much for being present with me today. If you have questions, comments, thoughts that you want to share after listening to this, please feel free to reach out. Happy to connect in various ways. This is going to be posted on Instagram and then also on the Facebook page with Rooted and on YouTube and all that stuff. Feel free to head to my website, Alight Baltimore, A-L-I-G-H-T, Alight, A-L-I-G-H-T, right? Alight Baltimore or alightalchemy.com, and that will bring you to spaces to get, other ways to connect with me, whether it's individual tarot readings or watching the history of readings that we've done for Tarot for World on Fire, or finding practitioners, Black folks, Black queer and trans people, Black queer and trans affirming people that are spaces to help model love, you know, and help you maybe interrogate some of the things that we even talked about today, and how that's resonating for you. Excuse me. And yeah, I think that's it. Love you. You're the best. Thank you so much for coming through. And if you need things, reach out. Upcoming stuff to mention really quickly before we close. The Rooted Collective is doing a couple of different things. You'll see pop up on our Facebook page over the next few weeks. The one that I can recall the closest in my head is that we're going to be doing a hike, or not a hike actually, like a walk together, just through some nearby woods in Baltimore during one Sunday in April. I believe it's Sunday, April 10th. And so I'll be leading that walk with a friend, colleague, mentor, amazing woman, Dr. Kalima Young, who has been on Rooted before in various ways, a central part of our collective. And we'll be doing some walking and safety mapping and mindfulness work as we just invite folks to be out in the woods with us, Black, queer, and trans people, and the folks that love us. So yeah, come on through. I think that's all I got. Love you lots. And then I will close out with this song. And this is Cleo Soul. Don't let it go to your head. It is like a meditation. So definitely suggest folks take a listen. And I'll just play a little bit more as we close. Bye, y'all. Love.
Let it change who you are. You are meant to be here. When I look in your eyes, your ego starts to appear. Are you afraid to ascend? Nothing's stopping you